My knuckles hurt from knocking so hard on the massive wooden door. The cold metal of the lion head knocker bit into my palm as I slammed it again and again, desperation drowning out any sense of self-preservation. Behind me, Sophia trembled against the stone pillar, her 14-year-old frame looking impossibly small in her school uniform. Blood spattered the hem of her skirt, not hers, never hers. But the image of it made my stomach turn. "Please," I whispered to no one, to the door, to God if he was listening. "Please open." I had no plan beyond this moment. No backup, no phone battery left to call for help. Just the address I'd memorized months ago when a regular customer at the bar had mentioned it in passing. The Ravellini estate, where the most dangerous man in the city lived, where I hoped that danger might protect us instead of destroy us. Security lights suddenly flooded the entrance, blinding me. I heard the mechanical whir of cameras adjusting, focusing on our faces. Sophia made a small sound of fear and pressed closer to my back. My younger sister hadn't spoken a single word since I'd found her 20 minutes ago, running down the street 3 blocks from her school, eyes vacant with shock. "We shouldn't be here," she'd finally whispered when I'd pulled her into an alley to catch our breath. "Mia, they saw me. They know I saw them." That was all she'd managed before her voice broke entirely. The door swung open with surprising silence for something so heavy. A man stood in the entrance, and even in my panic, I recognized him immediately. Luca Ravellini. I'd served him drinks dozens of times at the club where I worked. Always bourbon neat, always with a $20 tip, always with eyes that seemed to catalog everything around him. He looked different now. At the club, he wore expensive suits and controlled charm. Here, at what had to be past midnight, he wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His black hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. But his eyes held that same sharp awareness, now focused entirely on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Mia." He said my name like a statement, not a question. From the club. I was surprised he remembered. Surprised he knew my name at all. "Mr. Ravellini, I'm sorry to come here like this, but I didn't know where else to go." The words tumbled out too fast. "My sister. She witnessed something tonight, and the men who did it, they're looking for her, and I just need somewhere safe for one night. Just until tomorrow. Please." His gaze moved past me to Sophia, taking in her blood-stained uniform, her trembling hands, the hollow shock in her blue eyes. Something changed in his expression. Not softness exactly, but a shift toward something more human beneath the cold assessment. "Come inside." He stepped back, creating space for us to enter. Quickly, I didn't hesitate. I pulled Sophia through the doorway into a foyer that belonged in a museum. Marble floors stretched before us, reflecting the light from a crystal chandelier overhead. My worn sneakers squeaked against the pristine stone, leaving faint marks of dirt and desperation. Luca closed the door and engaged 3 separate locks with practiced efficiency. Then he touched something on his phone, and I heard the subtle sound of additional security measures activating around us. "Who's looking for her?" His voice remained calm, but I caught the edge beneath it. This was a man accustomed to threats, to violence, to making rapid decisions that others couldn't afford to question. "I don't know their names." I kept my arm around Sophia's shoulders, feeling her shake against me. "She was leaving debate club late. There was a man in the alley behind her school. She saw them kill him. 3 men. They turned around before she could run. One of them had a tattoo on his neck, a green dragon with red eyes." Luca's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The triad. The way he said it made my blood run colder. I'd heard rumors about different criminal organizations in the city, whispered conversations between customers at the bar who thought I wasn't paying attention. The triad was one of the names that made people lower their voices even further. "They chased her?" Luca asked. Sophia made a small sound. I answered for her. "She ran. She's fast, track team. She managed to lose them in the crowd near the subway, but I don't think for long. They were searching the streets when I found her. I couldn't take her home. Our apartment, they might know where we live. Schools have addresses on file. And if they're organized enough to..." I couldn't finish the sentence. The implications were too terrifying. You came here because you thought I could protect her. It wasn't a question. I met his dark eyes directly, forcing myself not to look away, despite every instinct screaming that staring at a man like Luca Ravellini was dangerous. I came here because I had nowhere else to go, and because I hoped you might understand what it means when bad people want to hurt someone innocent. For a long moment, he said nothing. He studied me with an intensity that felt like being X-rayed, like he could see past my fear to something deeper. Then his attention shifted to Sophia again, taking in the way she couldn't stop trembling, the way her fingers clutched at my jacket. "How old are you?" he asked her gently. Sophia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I felt her panic rising. "She's 14, I answered. "She's in shock. I don't think she can talk right now." Luca nodded once, a single sharp movement. Then he pulled his phone out again and spoke into it in a tone that expected immediate obedience. "Marco, I need a perimeter check on the property. Possible triad movement in the city tonight. Yes, now. And get Romano up here." He ended the call and looked at me. "You'll stay tonight, both of you. Tomorrow we'll reassess the situation and determine next steps." Relief hit me so hard my knees almost buckled. "Thank you. I can't. I don't know how to thank you. You can start by telling me exactly what your sister saw." He gestured toward a doorway leading deeper into the house. "But first, she needs to get cleaned up and into something that isn't covered in blood." I followed him through rooms that spoke of wealth I couldn't begin to comprehend. Everything was dark wood and leather, expensive art on the walls, furniture that looked both comfortable and prohibitively costly. We climbed a wide staircase to the second floor, where he led us down a hallway lined with closed doors. He opened one, revealing a bedroom larger than our entire apartment. A king bed with navy sheets occupied the center, flanked by matching nightstands. Windows overlooked dark grounds that I could barely see through the security lighting. "There's a bathroom through there." Luca pointed to another door. "I'll have someone bring clothes and toiletries. You'll be safe here tonight." Sophia finally moved, pulling away from me to sink onto the edge of the bed. She stared at her hands, at the blood still under her fingernails from when she'd fallen while running. "The man they killed," I said quietly. "Do you know who he was?" If it was the alley behind Preston Academy, then yes. Luca's expression was grim. "District Attorney Marcus Webb. He's been prosecuting a money laundering case against several triad operations. This was either sending a message or eliminating a problem. Probably both." My stomach dropped. "Then they'll definitely want to make sure Sophia can't identify them." "Yes." He didn't soften it. Didn't try to make it less frightening. I appreciated that more than I could express. "Which is why you're going to tell me everything she remembers. Every detail. While it's still fresh. Then I'll decide how to handle this." The way he said handle made it clear he meant something far more permanent than calling the police. A knock on the door interrupted us. A large man entered, carrying what looked like folded clothing. He had the same dangerous awareness as Luca, the same way of moving that suggested violence was always an option. "Romano," Luca said by way of introduction. "He'll be stationed outside this room tonight. No one gets in without my explicit permission." Romano nodded at me, his face impassive. He set the clothes on a chair near the door and left without speaking. "Get her cleaned up," Luca told me. "I'll be back in 15 minutes. We'll talk then." He left before I could respond, closing the door quietly behind him. I heard him speaking to Romano in the hallway, too low for me to make out the words. Sophia hadn't moved from the bed. I knelt in front of her, taking her cold hands in mine. "Hey," I said softly. "Look at me." Her blue eyes finally focused on my face. She looked so young, younger than her 14 years, scared in a way that made my chest ache. "We're safe tonight," I told her, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Mr. Ravellini is going to help us figure this out. But I need you to try to remember everything you saw, okay? Every detail might be important." "I don't want to remember," she whispered. "Mia, there was so much blood. And the sound when they—" She couldn't finish. "I know." I squeezed her hands. "But those men are dangerous, and the only way to stop them is to remember. Can you do that for me?" She nodded slowly, tears finally breaking free to stream down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I got us into this." "Don't." I pulled her into a hug, feeling her sob against my shoulder. "Don't you dare apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. They did, and we're going to make sure they pay for it." I wasn't sure I believed that. I wasn't sure of anything except that I'd just put our lives in the hands of a man whose power came from the same darkness that was now hunting my sister. But I'd made my choice when I knocked on that door. Now I had to trust that Luca Ravellini's protection was worth whatever price it would eventually cost. After getting Sophia into the shower and into clean clothes that were far too expensive for sleepwear, I heard another knock. Luca entered carrying a tray with tea and what looked like cookies. The domesticity of it seemed wrong coming from him. "She should try to eat something," he said, setting the tray on the nightstand. "Sugar helps with shock." Sophia was curled up on the bed now, wrapped in a blanket despite the room's warmth. She looked at the cookies but didn't reach for them. Luca pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, his movements unhurried. He didn't tower over her, didn't crowd her space. Instead, he waited until she looked at him voluntarily. "My name is Luca," he said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it before. "You're Sophia, correct?" She nodded slightly. "Sophia, I need you to tell me what you saw tonight. I know it's difficult, but the men who did this need to face consequences, and the only way that happens is if we know exactly who they are. Can you help me with that?" She glanced at me. I nodded encouragingly. "There were 3 of them," Sophia began, her voice barely audible. "The man, the victim, he was already on the ground when I came around the corner. One of them was standing over him, tall, dark jacket. He was the one with the tattoo. Green dragon on his neck, going up behind his ear. The dragon's eyes were red, and it had its mouth open like it was breathing fire." Luca's attention never wavered. "Good. That's very good. What about the other 2? One was shorter, heavy build. He had a gun. The other one was wearing a suit, like he'd come from an office or something. He was the one who saw me first." She swallowed hard. "He pointed at me and said something in another language. Not Spanish, something else. Mandarin, probably," Luca supplied. "Then what happened?" "I ran. The one with the tattoo started after me, but I cut through the construction site and came out on Franklin Street. There were people there, lots of them leaving the theater. I think that's the only reason they didn't catch me immediately. Did any of them get close enough to touch you?" "No. I'm fast." A hint of pride crept into her voice before fear swallowed it again. "But they saw my face clearly, and they know I saw them." Luca leaned back slightly, processing. "The blood on your uniform. How did that happen?" "I fell when I was running through the construction site. My hands landed in... There was blood on the ground. From the victim, I think. It hadn't dried yet." The clinical way she described it broke my heart. No 14-year-old should have to speak about murder with such careful precision. "You did well," Luca told her. "The details you remembered will be useful. Now I need you to rest. Tomorrow we'll talk more about keeping you safe, but tonight, you're protected. No one can reach you here." Sophia looked at him with something close to hope. "You promise?" He met her gaze steadily. "I promise, and I don't break my promises." There was something in the way he said it that made me believe him completely. This was a man whose word meant something, even in a world built on lies and violence. Luca stood and gestured for me to follow him to the door. Before leaving, he paused and looked back at Sophia. "Try to sleep," he said. "If you can't, there are books on the shelf, and the television remote is in the nightstand drawer. Romano is right outside if you need anything." We stepped into the hallway. Romano was indeed stationed there, standing with his back to the wall where he could see both directions of the corridor. "Your sister is brave," Luca said quietly. "Most adults couldn't have handled what she just described with that much clarity. She's always been stronger than she looks." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling the weight of the night crashing down. What happens now? Now I make some calls and confirm what we're dealing with. The triad doesn't move without purpose. If they killed Webb tonight, it's part of something larger. I need to know what. And Sophia, they'll keep looking for her. They will. He didn't sugarcoat it. Which means she can't go home. Neither of you can. Not until this is resolved. The reality of that statement hit me hard. Our apartment, my job, Sophia's school, our entire lives upended in one terrible moment of wrong place, Wrong time. I don't have money for a hotel, I admitted. And even if I did, they'd find us eventually. Wouldn't they? Yes. The triad has resources and connections throughout the city. They'd locate you within days, possibly hours if they're motivated. Then what am I supposed to do? The desperation in my voice was embarrassing. But I was past caring about pride. Luca studied me for a long moment. You stay here, both of you. Tomorrow we'll discuss longer-term arrangements. But tonight, this is the safest place in the city for your sister. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. His expression was unreadable. Get some rest, Mia. We'll talk more in the morning. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The triad operates through fear and information. They'll be looking for witnesses, checking emergency rooms, police reports, anywhere a scared teenage girl might have turned up tonight. By coming here instead, you bought yourselves time. That was smart. I didn't feel smart. I felt terrified. Fear and intelligence aren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes fear makes the best decisions. He nodded once. Good night. I watched him walk down the hallway, his stride confident even at this late hour. Then I returned to the bedroom where my sister was finally falling asleep, still wrapped in a blanket that cost more than my monthly rent. I settled into the chair Luca had vacated, unable to imagine sleeping in that massive bed while Sophia was so fragile. Through the window, I could see security lights illuminating the grounds, and shadows moving as Luca's men patrolled the perimeter. We were safe tonight. That's what he'd promised, and I chose to believe him. Tomorrow would bring new problems, new decisions, new dangers. But tonight, for the first time since I'd found Sophia running down the street with blood on her clothes and terror in her eyes, I allowed myself to breathe. Sometime around 3 a.m, I heard the door open quietly. Luca entered carrying blankets, moving with surprising silence for someone his size. He noticed I was still awake. I thought you might need these, he said, offering them. I took them gratefully, wrapping one around my shoulders. Thank you for everything. He glanced at Sophia, sleeping fitfully on the bed. She having nightmares? Off and on. Every time she starts to really sleep, she jerks awake. Without a word, Luca moved to the chair on the other side of the bed and sat down. He didn't touch Sophia, didn't speak. He simply sat there, a solid presence in the darkness. And somehow, with him there, Sophia's sleep finally deepened. Her breathing evened out. The tension left her small body. I watched this dangerous man sit vigil over my traumatized sister, and something shifted in my understanding of who Luca Ravellini actually was beneath the reputation and the power. Maybe we'd be okay. Maybe he really would keep his promise. Maybe I'd just made the best decision of my life. Or the worst. Only tomorrow would tell. Morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains, soft and golden, completely at odds with the nightmare of the previous night. I woke with my neck stiff from sleeping in the chair, blanket tangled around my legs. The other chair where Luca had sat was empty now. He must have left sometime before dawn. Sophia was still asleep, curled on her side with one hand tucked under her cheek. She looked peaceful for the first time in hours. I didn't want to wake her, didn't want to bring her back to the reality of what we were facing. A quiet knock preceded the door opening. A woman in her 50s entered carrying a tray with coffee, juice, and what smelled like fresh pastries. She had kind eyes and moved with the efficient grace of someone who'd worked in service for years. Good morning, she said softly, setting the tray on the table near the window. Mr. Ravellini thought you might be hungry. I'm Teresa. I manage the household. Thank you. My voice came out rough from lack of sleep. That's very thoughtful. She smiled. There's a bathroom down the hall if you'd like to freshen up. Second door on the left. I brought some clothes that might fit you both. Nothing fancy, just comfortable things. I glanced at the folded items she'd placed on the dresser. Jeans, soft sweaters, undergarments still in packages. Everything practical and in sizes that would probably work. Mr. Ravellini asked me to let you know he'll be in his office when you're ready to talk. Teresa continued. No rush. Let the girl sleep as long as she needs. After she left, I poured myself coffee and stood by the window. The grounds stretched out below, Manicured lawns giving way to tall stone walls topped with security measures that were probably invisible from this distance but definitely present. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. Sophia stirred around 8, blinking awake with momentary confusion before memory crashed back. I saw it happen. The return of fear and grief to her expression. "Hey," I said gently, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like last night really happened." She sat up slowly, pushing hair out of her face. "I hoped it was a nightmare." "I know." I handed her a glass of juice. "Drink this, then we'll figure out what comes next." She took it mechanically. "What is next?" "We can't stay here forever." I didn't have an answer to that. We ate breakfast mostly in silence, both of us avoiding the questions that hung between us. After we'd showered and changed into the clothes Teresa had provided, I couldn't delay the inevitable any longer. "Mr. Ravellini wants to talk to us," I said. "Are you ready for that?" Sophia nodded, though she looked anything but ready. We found Romano still stationed outside our door. He straightened when he saw us. "Morning. I'll take you to the boss." He led us through the house in daylight, and I saw details I'd missed in last night's panic. Original artwork on the walls, books in Italian and English lining built-in shelves, fresh flowers in vases that probably cost more than my car. This was old money mixed with new power, tradition wrapped around danger. Luca's office was on the first floor, behind heavy wooden doors that Romano knocked on before opening. The room beyond was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the back gardens. Luca sat behind a massive desk, talking on his phone in what I assumed was Italian. He gestured for us to enter and sit, wrapping up his conversation with a few clipped sentences. "Good morning." He set his phone aside and focused on us completely. "You both look better. Did you sleep?" "Some," I answered. "Thank you for the clothes and breakfast, and for last night. For all of it." He acknowledged this with a slight nod. "We need to discuss your situation. I've spent the morning gathering information, and what I learned isn't encouraging." My stomach tightened. "Tell us." "The Triad has put out word that they're looking for a blonde teenage girl who was in the area of Preston Academy last night. They're offering $20,000 for information leading to her location. They've sent people to hospitals, urgent care centers, anywhere a frightened witness might have gone. They're being thorough." Sophia made a small sound. I reached over and took her hand. "The man who was killed," Luca continued, District Attorney Marcus Webb, was scheduled to present evidence next week in a major money laundering case. His testimony would have connected 3 Triad front businesses to their operations. With him gone, the prosecution's case is significantly weakened. "So they killed him to stop the trial," I said. "Yes. And now your sister is the only person who can identify the men who did it, which makes her an unacceptable risk to them." The clinical way he explained it made the danger feel more real somehow. This wasn't paranoia or overreaction. This was calculated threat assessment from someone who understood violence intimately. "What do we do?" I asked. "We can't go home, I get that. But we have lives, jobs, school. I can't just disappear. And Sophia has exams next week." Luca leaned back in his chair. "Exams are irrelevant if she's not alive to take them. Let me be clear about what you're facing. The Triad will find you if you try to resume normal life. They have resources and patience. It might take days or weeks, but they will find you. And when they do, they won't just kill Sophia. They'll kill you too, to eliminate any possibility of testimony." The bluntness of it stole my breath. Sophia's hand tightened in mine. "So what? We just run? Change our names and hide forever?" The frustration in my voice was sharp. "That's not a life. No, it's survival. But I'm offering you an alternative." He stood and moved to the window, hands in his pockets. "You stay under my protection. Not just for a night, but until this situation is resolved." "Resolved how?" "That depends on several factors. The Triad's next moves. What the police investigation uncovers. Whether your sister's testimony becomes valuable enough to warrant official protection." He turned back to face us. "But in the immediate term, you need somewhere safe to live, and a way to earn money that doesn't put you in public view where you can be recognized." "I have to work," I insisted. "I can't just live off your charity." Something flickered in his expression. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering employment. I own a restaurant in the suburbs, Ristorante Bella Vista. It needs a manager, someone who can handle suppliers, scheduling, customer relations. You worked as a bartender, which means you understand service industry operations. The job is yours if you want it. I stared at him. You're offering me a job? Just like that? I'm offering you a way to stay off the triad's radar while still maintaining independence. The restaurant isn't in the city proper. It caters to a different clientele, quieter, more family-oriented. You'd be much less visible there than at a downtown club. It made a strange kind of sense, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trading one form of dependence for another. And Sophia, there's a safe house in the same area. Secure property with 24-hour security. You'll both stay there. Sophia can continue her education through online programs until it's safe for her to return to regular school. Sophia spoke up for the first time. What about my friends? My track team? I can't just disappear without anyone knowing why. Luca's expression softened slightly. I understand that's difficult, but your friends can't know where you are. The triad will question them, threaten them if necessary. The less they know, the safer they'll be. This is insane, I said, standing abruptly. You're talking about uprooting our entire lives, moving to some safe house, hiding like criminals when we didn't do anything wrong. You're right. You didn't do anything wrong. His voice remained calm. But the triad doesn't care about right and wrong. They care about eliminating threats. And right now, your sister is a threat to their operations and their freedom. I paced to the window, looking out at the peaceful gardens. Everything felt surreal. 24 hours ago, my biggest concern was making rent and helping Sophia study for her biology exam. Now we were discussing safe houses and hit lists. I need to think about this, I said finally. Of course. Take the day. But Mia, he waited until I looked at him. I need you to understand something. I don't make offers like this lightly. And I don't make them to people I don't believe can handle the situation. You came to my door last night because you knew it was the smart play. Don't second-guess that instinct now. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Excuse me. I need to take this. He answered in Italian again, his tone shifting to something harder. The conversation was brief, and when he ended the call, his expression was grim. The triad just sent someone to your apartment building. They spoke with your landlord. My blood ran cold. Did they get in? No. Your landlord told them he hadn't seen you in 2 days, which is apparently true based on your work schedule. But they left contact information and asked him to call if you returned. They know where we live. Sophia's voice was small. They've known since last night, Luca said. School records would have given them your address within hours. This confirms they're actively hunting you. I felt the walls closing in. Every option, every potential escape route was being cut off. Fine. We'll take your offer. The safe house, the job, all of it. But I need some things from our apartment. Photos, documents, my laptop. Give me a list. I'll have someone collect everything and bring it to you. You're not going back there. I can't just abandon everything we own. You can, and you will. His tone left no room for argument. Your belongings are replaceable. You and your sister are not. I wanted to fight him on it, but the rational part of my brain knew he was right. Going back to the apartment would be suicide. There's something else you should know, Luca said. I'm having my people reach out to contacts in the police department. There's a prosecutor who might be interested in Sophia's testimony. If we can arrange official protection through the district attorney's office, it would give you more options long-term. You have contacts in the DA's office? I shouldn't have been surprised. I have contacts everywhere. Some owe me favors. This is how the city works, Mia. Power is built on relationships and leverage. It was a glimpse into his world. And I wasn't sure I wanted to see more, but I was already in it now, whether I wanted to be or not. Teresa appeared at the door. Sir, the car is ready. Luca nodded. Thank you. To us, he said. I'm having you move to the safe house this morning. You'll have privacy, security, and everything you need. Tomorrow we'll discuss the restaurant position in more detail. Everything was moving so fast. Too fast. But when I looked at Sophia, saw the fear still present in her eyes, I knew we didn't have the luxury of time. Okay, I agreed quietly. We'll go. The safe house turned out to be a modest 2-story home in a residential neighborhood 40 minutes outside the city. Nothing about it screamed security, but I noticed the reinforced windows, the subtle cameras, the way the 2 men who arrived before us did a thorough sweep before allowing us inside. The interior was comfortable without being ostentatious. Furnished living room, updated kitchen, 3 bedrooms upstairs. Someone had stocked the refrigerator and pantries with groceries. Fresh flowers sat on the dining table. It's nice, Sophia said, exploring the space with cautious curiosity. Weird, but nice. I understood what she meant. It felt temporary and permanent at the same time. A place to exist, but not to live. One of the security guards, a quiet man named Vincent, explained the protocols. Don't open the door for anyone we didn't recognize. Keep the curtains closed after dark. If we needed anything, call the number programmed into the phones they provided. After they left, Sophia and I stood in the kitchen, both of us at a loss for what to do next. Are we really going to stay here? She asked. For now, until we figure out something better. What if there isn't anything better? What if this is just our life now? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound like a lie. That evening, Luca arrived with boxes containing our belongings from the apartment. I hadn't expected him to bring them personally, had assumed he'd send someone. But he carried in 3 boxes himself, setting them carefully in the living room. Everything on your list, he said. Plus some additional items I thought you might want. Photo albums, your sister's track medals, things like that. I opened the top box and found my mother's jewelry case, the one piece of her I'd kept after she died. I hadn't even thought to put it on the list. How did you know? My voice came out thick. Teresa helped identify what might be important. She has good instincts about these things. I looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd thought to save my dead mother's jewelry. Thank you, really, for all of this. He nodded. Sophia's in her room? Yeah, she's been drawing. Drawing what? The men from last night. She said it helps her remember details. Interest sharpened his expression. May I see? I called Sophia down. She came reluctantly, carrying a sketch pad. When she showed Luca the drawings, his reaction was immediate and intense. She'd captured 3 faces with remarkable detail. The man with the dragon tattoo. The heavy-set man with hard eyes. The one in the suit who'd spotted her first. These are excellent, Luca said. Very detailed. Would you be willing to keep working on them? Try to add anything else you remember? Clothing details, scars? Anything distinctive? Sophia looked uncertain. I guess. If it helps. It will. Very much. He handed the sketch pad back carefully. You have real talent, Sophia. A hint of pride touched her face before fading back to worry. After she returned upstairs, Luca turned to me. Those drawings could be valuable. If we can identify the men, it gives us leverage. Leverage for what? For keeping you safe. For resolving this situation in a way that doesn't require you to hide forever. He moved toward the door. I'll be back tomorrow to discuss the restaurant position. In the meantime, try to rest. You're safe here. After he left, I unpacked our belongings, trying to make the safe house feel less temporary. But every item I placed, every photo I set on a shelf, felt like admitting this was real. We were in hiding. Our lives had been reduced to boxes in a borrowed house, protected by a man whose power came from the same darkness that threatened us. Sophia came downstairs as I was finishing. She held up her sketch pad. I remembered something else. The tattoo guy had a scar on his left hand, between his thumb and first finger, shaped like a crescent moon. I pulled her into a hug. That's good. That's really good. Mia? Her voice was muffled against my shoulder. Do you think we'll ever go home? I held her tighter, unable to give her the answer she wanted, because the truth was, I didn't know if home existed anymore, or if it ever would again. 2 weeks had passed since we'd moved into the safe house, and I was beginning to understand what Luca had meant about routine being its own form of security. Every morning at 7, I drove the 15 miles to Ristorante Bella Vista, a charming Italian restaurant tucked into a quiet shopping district. A nondescript sedan stayed 2 cars back the entire way. Different driver, different vehicle depending on the day. Close enough to keep me alive, far enough to let me pretend I was simply commuting. Every evening, I returned to Sophia, to homework and therapy appointments, and the careful reconstruction of a life that felt both foreign and familiar. The restaurant had been struggling before I arrived, not failing exactly, but coasting on reputation without real attention to detail. The previous manager had left suddenly, something about family issues that no one wanted to discuss. I suspected Luca had arranged the opening specifically for me, but I chose not to ask. Pride only mattered if you had the luxury of options. My first day had been overwhelming. Staff who clearly wondered who this newcomer was and why the owner trusted her with his business. Suppliers who tested my knowledge and authority. A kitchen that ran on organized chaos and the head chef's temperamental genius. But I'd worked in service long enough to understand the rhythms, to know when to push and when to listen. By the end of the first week, I'd reorganized the inventory system, renegotiated contracts with 2 suppliers who'd been overcharging, and implemented a new reservation system that reduced wait times. The staff stopped questioning my presence and started asking my opinion. The chef, a large man named Antonio, who intimidated everyone, actually smiled when I complimented his osso buco. Luca had visited twice that first week, ostensibly to check on operations, but really, I suspected, to see if I'd sink or swim. He'd watched me handle a difficult customer with diplomacy, negotiate with a wine distributor over pricing, and calm Antonio down when a delivery arrived late. Each time, I'd caught him observing me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Approval, maybe. Or calculation. "You're good at this," he'd said after the second visit, standing in the office as I reviewed the week's numbers. "I like solving problems, making things work better than they did before." I'd glanced up from the ledger. "Why does that surprise you?" "It doesn't. But knowing someone is capable and watching them prove it are different things." There was weight behind his words that I didn't fully understand yet, but I felt it, the shift in how he looked at me. Not as a woman he was helping, but as someone who belonged in his world on her own merit. Sophia's adjustment had been harder. Online classes couldn't replace the social interaction she craved, and therapy sessions dredged up trauma she wanted to bury. But her psychologist, Dr. Sarah Hawthorne, was patient and skilled at helping Sophia process what she'd witnessed, without being consumed by it. The drawings continued. Sophia had filled an entire sketch pad with increasingly detailed portraits of the 3 men. She'd remembered the heavy-set man had a gold chain, that the one in the suit wore expensive cufflinks with some kind of symbol. Every session with Dr. Hawthorne seemed to unlock new details, and Sophia transferred them to paper with careful precision. "It helps," she'd explained one evening, while working on a particularly difficult angle of the dragon tattoo. "When I draw them, they're just shapes and shadows, not real people who could hurt us." I'd hugged her then, grateful for whatever mechanism was helping her cope. Luca had started visiting the safe house more frequently, always with plausible reasons. Checking security, reviewing Sophia's drawings, discussing restaurant business that couldn't wait until morning. But the visits stretched longer each time, and the excuses grew thinner. One evening, he arrived as I was making dinner. Pasta with vegetables. Nothing fancy, but better than the takeout we'd been living on. Sophia was upstairs on a video call with Dr. Hawthorne, their twice-weekly session. "Smells good," Luca said, entering the kitchen without invitation. He'd grown comfortable here, shedding some of the formality he maintained everywhere else. Just pasta. Nothing like what Antonio makes. Antonio is a professional. This is better. I glanced at him surprised. How is home cooking better than restaurant quality? Because it's made for specific people, not anonymous customers. There's intention behind it. He leaned against the counter, watching me stir the sauce. My mother used to say you could taste the difference between food made with care and food made with obligation. It was the first time he'd mentioned his mother. In 2 weeks of increasing familiarity, Luca had remained carefully opaque about his personal history. I knew the public facts, the things anyone could find with a quick search. But the private details, the human moments behind the reputation, those he guarded closely. Is she still alive? Your mother? No. She died when I was 23. Heart attack. Fast, at least. She didn't suffer long. The matter-of-fact delivery didn't hide the old grief underneath. I wanted to ask more, but sensed the door closing as quickly as it had opened. Sophia came downstairs then, rescuing us both from the weight of the conversation. She brightened when she saw Luca, and I'd noticed that happening more often. She sought his presence, relaxed when he was around in a way she didn't with the security guards, or even with me sometimes. "How was your session?" he asked her. "Okay. Dr. Hawthorne says I'm making progress." Sophia grabbed a soda from the refrigerator. "She thinks the drawings are helping with processing, which is good because I remembered something else today." "What did you remember?" "The guy in the suit. He had a watch. Really expensive looking, with a black face and gold hands. And there were marks on it, scratches, like he'd worn it a long time." Luca's attention sharpened. "That's excellent detail, Sophia. Can you add it to the drawing?" "Already did." She pulled out her phone and showed him a photo of the updated sketch. He studied it carefully. "May I send this to someone?" Sophia looked uncertain. "Who?" "A contact who might be able to identify these men based on the details you've provided. The more we know about who they are, the better we can protect you." She glanced at me. I nodded, and she agreed. Luca immediately forwarded the image, typing a message I couldn't see. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. We ate at the kitchen table, conversation flowing easily between updates about Sophia's schoolwork, funny stories about restaurant customers, and Luca's dry observations about city politics. It felt almost normal, like we were a family instead of 3 people thrown together by violence and necessity. After dinner, Sophia disappeared upstairs to work on homework, leaving Luca and me to handle dishes. I washed while he dried, falling into an easy rhythm that suggested we'd done this dozens of times instead of just once before. "She's doing better," he observed, putting away a plate. "Less fearful than 2 weeks ago. The routine helps." And feeling safe, I handed him another dish, our fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent an unexpected warmth up my arm. "You're good with her, patient." I didn't expect that. "Why not?" "Because patient isn't exactly the adjective people use to describe you." He smiled slightly. "People see what I want them to see. Power requires a certain reputation. And what do you want me to see?" The question came out before I could stop it. Too personal, too direct. But Luca didn't deflect. He set down the towel and turned to face me fully. The truth, whatever that means. We stood close in the small kitchen, the air between us suddenly charged with awareness I'd been trying to ignore. He was an attractive man, that was undeniable. But attraction felt dangerous when combined with dependence, with the power imbalance that defined our situation. "Mia," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Whatever he'd been about to say was cut off by his phone buzzing insistently. He checked it, and his expression went cold. Motion sensors on the north perimeter. "Someone's approaching the property." Fear spiked through me. "The triad?" "I don't know yet, but we're not taking chances." He was already moving, making calls in rapid succession. "Vincent, Romano, get here now. Full alert." Within seconds, the house security system activated with a soft chime. Luca grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the hallway. "Get Sophia. Safe room now." I ran upstairs, my heart hammering. Sophia looked up from her homework, immediately reading the alarm on my face. "What's wrong?" "Someone's outside. We need to go to the safe room." We'd been shown the safe room on our first day but never expected to use it. Located behind a false panel in the master bedroom closet, it was a small reinforced space with its own ventilation, phone line, and emergency supplies. Sophia didn't argue, didn't ask questions. We moved fast, and I was grateful for every track practice that had taught her to respond quickly under pressure. I heard Luca's voice downstairs, calm but commanding, issuing orders I couldn't quite make out. The safe room was cramped, just large enough for 2 people to sit comfortably. A small monitor showed feeds from the exterior security cameras. I watched grainy black and white images of men moving along the perimeter fence, testing for weaknesses. "How many?" Sophia whispered. I counted. 3 that I can see. On the monitor, I watched Luca exit the house through the back door, moving with lethal purpose. Romano and Vincent appeared from different directions, converging on the intruder's position with military precision. What happened next was fast and brutal. The intruders realized they'd been made and tried to retreat, but Luca's men cut off their escape routes. I saw Luca personally take down one man, movements economical and devastating. No wasted energy, no hesitation. This was violence as a tool, wielded by someone who'd mastered it completely. Sophia pressed against my side, watching the screen with wide eyes. Is he going to kill them? I don't know, but we both saw Luca grab one man by the collar and drag him toward better light. He spoke to him, too far from cameras for audio, his posture aggressive but controlled. The man nodded frantically, clearly answering questions. After several minutes, Luca made a gesture, and Romano secured all 3 intruders with zip ties. Then Luca pulled out his phone and made a call. Within 20 minutes, 2 unmarked vans arrived. The men were loaded inside and driven away. Just like that, the threat was neutralized and removed. Luca's voice came through the intercom. "Mia, Sophia, it's clear. You can come out." We emerged from the safe room on shaky legs. Luca met us at the bottom of the stairs. He had blood on his knuckles and a rip in his shirt, but otherwise looked unaffected by what had just happened. "Are you hurt?" I asked, reaching for his hand before thinking better of it. "No. Minor." He pulled his hand back, not rejecting the gesture but keeping distance. The men were triad scouts. They were checking properties in the area, looking for signs of occupation that matched your profile. How did they find us? They didn't specifically. They're doing systematic searches of any property connected to people they know I do business with. It was only a matter of time before they checked here. Sophia's voice was small. "So we're not safe even here. You're safe because we caught them before they confirmed anything, and now they won't be reporting back." Something dark flickered in his expression. Ever. I understood what he wasn't saying. Those men wouldn't be found alive. The thought should have horrified me. Instead, I felt only relief that the threat had been eliminated. "We can't stay here," I said. "If they found this place, others will come. You're moving. Tonight. I have another property, more secure, on my estate grounds. You'll be there until I arrange something more permanent." "Your estate? You mean the mansion where we first came?" "Yes. There's a guest house, separate from the main residence but within the secured perimeter. No one gets through that security without me knowing." It meant being closer to him, seeing him daily instead of during occasional visits. Part of me wanted that more than was probably wise. The other part recognized the danger in proximity to someone whose pull I was already struggling to resist. "Okay," I agreed. "We'll move." Luca nodded once. "Pack what you need tonight. Everything else can be collected tomorrow. I'm not leaving you here while they clean up." By they, I assumed he meant his people removing any evidence that we'd been here, eliminating the trail that had almost gotten us killed. As Sophia went upstairs to gather her things, Luca caught my arm. "I'm sorry. I thought this location was secure. You couldn't have known they'd do systematic searches." "I should have anticipated it. That's my job, anticipating threats before they materialize." His jaw was tight with what looked like self-recrimination. "This won't happen again." "Luca." I waited until he looked at me. "You saved us. Again. Whatever you were going to say before, in the kitchen, I want to hear it. When this is over, when we're settled wherever we're going, I want to know what you were going to tell me." Something shifted in his eyes, warmth breaking through the cold calculation. "When we're settled. I promise." An hour later, we drove through the night toward Luca's estate, our belongings hastily packed, our temporary home already being erased behind us. Sophia fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted by fear and adrenaline crash. Luca drove in silence, his attention split between the road and periodic checks of his mirrors, making sure we weren't followed, always protecting, always vigilant. I watched the city lights give way to suburban darkness and wondered what I'd really agreed to by accepting his help. Safety, yes, but also deeper entanglement in his world, in his life, in whatever this thing was growing between us. The guest house turned out to be more than I'd expected. A small cottage tucked into manicured grounds, close enough to the main house to share security, but far enough for privacy. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, comfortable furniture that looked recently updated. "Get some sleep," Luca said as he helped carry our bags inside. "Tomorrow we'll discuss next steps." But before he could leave, I caught his hand. the same hand that had blood on it an hour ago. His knuckles were split but already cleaned, probably while I was packing. "Thank you," I said simply, "for everything." He looked at our joined hands, then at my face. Whatever he saw there made his expression soften. "You're welcome, Mia. Now lock the door behind me and try to rest." After he left, I stood at the window and watched his silhouette return to the main house. Watched the lights come on in what I assumed was his office. Watched him pace past the windows, phone to his ear, still working, still managing threats even at this late hour. Sophia appeared beside me, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Is he always like this? Taking care of everyone else? I think so. I think that's who he is under everything else. I like him, she said simply. I feel safe when he's around. Me too, I admitted. And that, more than the violence or the danger or the complete upheaval of our lives, was what scared me most. Because safety with someone like Luca Ravellini came at a price I wasn't sure I was ready to pay. 1 month into our new life on Luca's estate, I'd stopped looking over my shoulder every few minutes. The constant vigilance that had defined our first weeks was giving way to something that almost resembled normalcy. Almost. The guest cottage had become home in ways I hadn't expected. Sophia decorated her room with posters and fairy lights, creating teenage sanctuary within our protected bubble. I'd established routines that gave structure to days that might otherwise blur together. Morning coffee on the small patio, evening walks along the secured perimeter paths, dinners that we sometimes shared with Luca when his schedule allowed. The restaurant continued to thrive under my management. Revenue was up 18% from the previous month, and Antonio had started calling me his secret weapon with suppliers. I'd discovered I had a knack for this work, for seeing potential improvements and implementing them efficiently. It wasn't the career I'd imagined, but it was mine in a way nothing else had been. Sophia had thrown herself into her drawings with renewed focus. What had started as trauma processing had evolved into something more purposeful. She understood now that her sketches were evidence, potentially powerful enough to bring down dangerous men. That responsibility seemed to motivate rather than frighten her. On a Thursday afternoon, she burst into the cottage after her therapy session, eyes bright with accomplishment. "I finished them," she announced, spreading 3 detailed portraits across the kitchen table. "Dr. Hawthorne says these are as accurate as I can make them without seeing the men again, which I never want to do." I studied the drawings. They were remarkable, capturing not just features but essence. The dragon tattoo man's cold calculation, the heavy-set enforcer's brutality, the suited one's careful intelligence. Sophia had rendered them in graphite with shadows that made them feel 3-dimensional, alive in disturbing ways.